He spent 6 months carrying an entire hero's party on his back, handling transport, reconnaissance, and logistics while everyone else took the glory. Their thanks? Getting fired to his face and told he's worthless. What none of them realize is that this worthless beast tamer is about to become one of the strongest fighters in the world. One contract, one ultimate species, one loyal companion at a time. This is the story of Rein. Act 1. Fired but not finished. Rein Shroud is a young man with beast tamer abilities, the power to communicate with animals and form magical contracts with them, channeling their strength as his own. For 6 months, he's used that talent to support a hero's party behind the scenes, handling transport, scouting, and logistics, a role he genuinely believed was valued and important to the team's success. In reality, his teammates looked down on him for lacking direct combat skills, treating his contributions as an afterthought rather than a necessity. The party's arrogant leader, Arios Orlando, fires him outright, telling him bluntly to his face that he's useless and only slows them down, complaining that they constantly have to divert resources just to save him from monsters he can't handle himself. Stunned by finally hearing what his comrades really think of him, Rein silently removes his hero's cloak and walks away without a word of protest. Sitting alone on a bench in the town square, turning over every harsh word he'd previously overlooked or brushed off in the name of teamwork, he realizes he needs a real plan just to keep making a living going forward. A group of children run up, begging to see his trick again, clearly delighted fans of his small magic displays. He casts a quick spell to form a temporary contract with a bird overhead, which lands and bows gracefully for the delighted kids before he releases it and it flies off. As the children chatter excitedly about wanting to become beast tamers themselves one day, Rein asks why they wouldn't rather dream of being brave heroes instead. And they tell him plainly, without hesitation, that heroes are a snobbish bunch who look down on commoners, while adventurers can travel the world freely and earn an honest fortune on their own terms. Something clicks in his head. Rein decides on his next move. Act 2. The Cat Spirit on the Road. At the Adventurers Guild, receptionist Natalie explains that every prospective adventurer must first pass a trial quest, kill 10 goblins, and collect 20 medicinal herbs. Using a squirrel to track down a group of the weak F-rank goblins, Rein clears them easily despite his lack of direct combat training, relying instead on positioning and animal allies. While gathering the runestones they leave behind, he hears a scream deeper in the woods and rushes over to find the D-rank killer tiger attacking a defenseless woman, clearly outmatched. His blade shatters on impact against a tough hide, and just as he desperately tells the woman to run for her life, she instead leaps several meters into the air and kicks the tiger down with tremendous force, killing it outright in a single decisive strike. Getting a better look at her, Rein realizes she's no ordinary woman. She's a cat spirit, a member of the ultimate species, a class of beings with immense power on the brink of extinction after centuries of decline. Though naturally magic users at their core, cat spirits have evolved extraordinary physical and athletic abilities over generations as well. Rein feeds her some of his own food supplies since she looks completely drained after the fight, and once re-energized, she introduces herself as Kanade. She explains she'd grown bored with her small, isolated community and set out traveling the world, sensing strong, unusual power radiating from Rein the moment they met, and asked outright to be tamed by him. Curious to know her better and flattered by the request, he agrees, biting his thumb to spill a drop of blood and form the magical rune that seals their contract, chanting the necessary words as a matching mark appears on both their hands. Continuing his trial afterward, he forms temporary contracts with a group of rabbits to help gather the required herbs quickly, a feat that stuns Kanade watching from nearby, since ordinary beast tamers can only handle a single temporary contract at a time, let alone while already permanently bonded to an ultimate species on top of it. Rein shrugs the whole thing off as nothing particularly special, unaware of just how abnormal his abilities really are. Passing his trial with ease, Rein is officially registered as an F-rank adventurer of the Horizon Adventurers Guild, receiving his official ID card and a modest 50 copper coins as his first reward, barely enough to cover basic lodging for the night. Determined to earn more and build a real living, he heads back out to look for additional work. That evening at the guild's diner, a brutish, entitled man tries to pull Kanade away for lunch entirely against her wishes, ignoring her clear discomfort. Rein steps in immediately, and the man, humiliated in front of the crowd, challenges him to an arm wrestling match with Kanade herself as the stakes for the winner. Rein fully expects to lose miserably given his ordinary appearance, until the match begins and he snaps the entire table clean in half with the sheer unexpected force of his grip, sending the man crying and sprawling to the floor in shock. Natalie arrives moments later, furious at the commotion, and drags the troublemaker out bodily, revealing he already has a long history of complaints filed against him at the guild. Bewildered by his own sudden newfound strength, Rein learns from an amused Kanade that gaining her superhuman physical power is simply one of the natural perks that comes bundled with their new contract. Act 3. The Fall of Ebon Fang. Still confined to basic, low-paying F-rank jobs, Rein and Kanade continue gathering herbs with the rabbit's help. Kanade's sharp cat ears hear yelling in the distance. An old man is being harassed by a gang claiming allegiance to Ebon Fang, an infamous group of bandits notorious for horrific crimes. The pair charge in, catching the bandits off guard, and Rein makes quick work of them with his newfound strength. The old man warns them to flee since Ebon Fang hunts down and kills anyone who defies them. Rather than run, Rein decides to hunt them down first. Kanade worries he's aiming too high, but he assures her he has a plan. A squirrel leads them to the gang's heavily guarded hideout. Rein forms a temporary contract with an army bee, a species with an extremely potent paralytic sting capable of immobilizing a grown man for 12 hours, and sends Kanade back to town for reinforcements, while the bee returns with hundreds of its hive mates. Rein contracts each of them and sets them loose. In no time, every bandit is paralyzed, and the adventurers Kanade rallied begin rounding them up. Curiously, no knights showed up to help, with one adventurer noting they didn't consider it worth their time. Then the cave starts rumbling. 3 giant C-rank monsters called king lizards burst from behind massive bars, a crisis that would overwhelm even seasoned adventurers. Rein and Kanade handle them without breaking a sweat, buying time for the others to secure the bandits and escape, earning genuine cheers and applause, the first time Rein's efforts have ever been publicly appreciated.
Meanwhile, Rein's old party struggles badly with their newly hired replacement Beast Tamer, who insists their expectations, taming 10 to 20 animals simultaneously, are simply unreasonable, since a Beast Tamer's brain can only handle so much at once. Accustomed to Rein's abnormal abilities, they assume he's lying and fire him too. The Ebon Fang takedown is deemed so impressive that the guild promotes Rein to E rank and rewards him generously in silver, letting him and Kanade finally afford new equipment, a proper meal, and a real room for the night. Act 4. The Dragonoid at the Bridge. A week later, business is steady when Natalie offers a lucrative quest: eliminate a troublesome guard dog tormenting travelers at Stride Bridge, the only trade route to the southern continent, for a reward of 5 gold coins. Rein accepts without hesitation, though nobody will share details about the creature beforehand. Arriving at the bridge, a giant red dragon lands before them and transforms into a woman who demands a fight, introducing herself as Tania, a dragonoid, another ultimate species, following the custom of setting out at 15 to train and grow stronger by seeking worthy opponents. Tania challenges them 2-on-1, opening with an attack on Rein that he barely blocks, then unleashing fire that singes the tip of Kanade's tail. Furious, Kanade launches herself into a full brawl with the dragonoid, the two trading blows on equal footing until Tania flings them both into the air with a firestorm. Kanade uses her athleticism to dodge the flames and land them safely. Trusting Rein's plan, she buys him time by engaging Tania solo while he searches for a bird he'd spotted mid-flight. Finding it, he forms a contract, asks it to bring its flock, and tames every one of them, brightly colored, poisonous petal birds whose mere pecking crumbles the unbeatable dragonoid to the ground, unable to lift a finger. Tania accepts defeat. At the guild, Natalie notices Tania's horns, and Rein quickly covers by claiming she's a normal human wearing a costume, worried what might happen if the town learns there's a dragon nearby. Escorting her to the woods afterward, he tells her to continue her training far from town, the opposite of the enslavement she expected. Charmed by his kindness and strength, Tania asks to join their travels instead. A jealous Kanade reluctantly agrees, and Rein forms a contract with Tania too, growing his party to 3. Act 5. A tragic past revealed. That same night, Arios' party returns from an unsuccessful week in the woods, having struggled without Rein's usual support. Arios coldly asks him to rejoin, planning to use him to clear the dangerous lost woods before discarding him again. Their first joint quest is exterminating a slime swarm, pests every adventurer can kill but often ignores, letting their populations explode into town-disrupting infestations. Struggling to locate the swarm, Rein uses Assimilate, a beast tamer skill that lets him temporarily transfer his consciousness into a bird's body while his own dozes off, scouting from the air. Spotting a massive swarm, he returns and at Tania's urging, attempts a fireball spell despite only knowing beginner magic. To everyone's shock, he unleashes a massive fireball that wipes out the entire swarm. Tania's hunch confirmed, forming a contract with her passed on her dragonoid fire magic, just as Kanade's contract passed on her physical strength. Over a celebratory dinner, Rein finally shares his past. Raised in a hidden village of beast tamers, including his own parents, he never knew a childhood without the craft. At 12, while off practicing alone in the woods, he returned home to find the sky red with fire, his entire village slaughtered by a monster attack while he was away. An adventurer party rescued him and brought him to an inn, where he worked for years doing chores, until Arios recruited him less than a year ago, offering hope of preventing tragedies like his own. Instead, he'd simply been used. Moved by his story, Kanade and Tania feel a deep sense of pride to serve as his companions. Their next quest, clearing orcs near town, goes smoothly enough that Tania grows overconfident, until she's ambushed and saved by Rein and Kanade. Rattled by his minor injury, which he heals easily, Tania is too ashamed to face him, apologizing later for letting her guard down. Rein reassures her with a warm smile, asking only that she be more careful since he and Kanade both care about her, a kindness that leaves her speechless and blushing. Act 6. Forced back into the fold. Heading home the next day, they run into Arios' party again. Rein tries to avoid them, but Arios stops him, stunned to see him traveling with 2 ultimate species, and condescendingly asks him to rejoin. Rein firmly declines until one hero reveals their true mission, retrieving the Shield of Truth, a noble relic locked deep in the Lost Welts, essential to defeating the Demon King. Without it, monsters will run rampant, killing civilians everywhere. The thought of another tragedy like his hometown forces Rein to reluctantly accept. When Arios demeans Kanade and Tania as Rein's pets, Rein snaps and punches him, prompting Arios to challenge them to prove which group is truly stronger. Kanade overwhelms the party's bald swordsman with a flurry of punches, kicking away his blade when he tries a fancy counter, ultimately knocking him out with one final kick after he insults Rein once too often. Tania faces the party's 2 mages, effortlessly dissolving every spell they throw at her using Material Cleanser, a technique that identifies and neutralizes magic at its fundamental level, exhausting them without lifting a real finger, before revealing she'd only bluffed about finishing them off with epic level magic. Finally, Rein faces Arios himself, cutting off a snide remark with a punch, absorbing Arios' blazingly fast swordplay, and countering with his own dragonoid-infused fireball and superhuman strength. Overwhelmed and out of options as Arios unleashes uncounterable spells, Rein returns to his roots, remotely contracting a bee mid-fight to sting Arios down, proving once and for all that beast tamers are far from useless, before finishing him with an earth-shaking blow. Humble, the heroes hand off their mission. The Shield of Truth is currently held deep in the woods, guarded by what they assume are monsters.
Act 7. The Fairy in the Woods. The Lost Woods earns its name from its ever-shifting terrain, trapping explorers in an impossible, looping maze. Using Assimilate to scout from above, Rein finds a path deeper in, only for the group to end up right back where they started. Suspecting something more at play, Tania casts Material Search, tracing powerful magical energy to a massive tree radiating illusion magic that scrambles the minds of anyone nearby, causing them to walk in circles. Just as Kanade prepares to destroy it outright, an eerie voice warns them away, and a glowing winged girl emerges, a fairy, an ultimate species even more powerful than dragonoids. She repeatedly demands they leave, ultimately forcing them out with a warning attack. Rein explains that fairies harbor deep resentment toward humans after centuries of conflict that drove them from their forests into hidden sanctuaries. Believing the tree's barrier might be protecting the Shield of Truth, Rein insists on trying diplomacy instead of force. Returning alone while Kanade and Tania hold back, he lets the fairy's warning arrows graze him without retreating, proving his sincerity. Stunned by his composure, she nearly listens, until she snaps back and attacks again, this time blocked by Kanade and Tania, who vouch for Rein by recounting his kindness. Intrigued, the fairy agrees to hear them out, introducing herself as Sora. She admits to erecting the barrier to protect her hidden village, and reveals the shield isn't guarded by monsters at all, but by fairies themselves. Her hatred for monsters runs deeper than her hatred for humans, and she hands the relic over without further resistance. Act 8. Luna's Rescue.
Sensing something still troubling Sora, Rein returns to check on her. She reveals she has a twin sister, Luna, with whom she once shared garden duties over the barrier. Days earlier, the two had briefly left together and encountered a Shadow Knight, a monster serving the Demon King's army, which captured Luna and demanded Sora reveal the village's location in exchange for her sister's life. Torn, Sora begged her village leader for help, but he prioritized the village's safety over Luna and ordered Sora to ignore the demand. Unable to abandon her sister despite her obligation to obey, Sora is desperate. Rein explains that Shadow Knights, though only C rank, possess a nasty ability to absorb magic entirely, making them nearly unbeatable for fairies who rely solely on spellcasting. The group agrees to help. Sora leads them to the monster, and Rein draws its attention with a fireball before he and Kanade ambush it physically. Realizing Sora broke their agreement, the knight moves to kill the chained Luna in retaliation, but Tania intercepts, freeing her and fleeing with her in her arms while Rein and Kanade hold the knight off. With none of their attacks landing decisively, Rein forms a temporary contract with a swarm of bees, whose distracting attacks, though ineffective on their own, create the opening he needs to boost Kanade's already formidable strength, letting her land the finishing blow. Reunited with a deeply relieved Sora, the twins, physically identical but polar opposites in personality, with Sora gentle and elegant and Luna blunt and rough, realize they can't return to a village that abandoned Luna, with nowhere else to go. Kanade invites them to join the party. Wary of imposing given the long history between fairies and humans, Rein hesitates, but the twins trust him enough to formally request the bond themselves. Lacking any prior knowledge of fairy taming, the ritual nearly drains him completely, but the sisters hold him steady and welcome their new master.
Act 9. The Demon King's Shadow. Delivering the recovered shield just 2 days after accepting the quest, the heroes initially suspect a forgery before confirming its authenticity and paying Rein the promised 20 gold. As he turns to leave, the bald swordsman asks him to rejoin properly, infuriating Arios that a decision was made without his approval, though even he grudgingly concedes they need Rein's help to defeat the Demon King. Offered better pay and treatment, Rein declines outright, already content with the far better party he's built for himself. Left behind, Arios seethes over his humiliating defeat and privately vows revenge. Outside, the group discusses the legend of the Demon King, whose power to enslave all of humanity was once broken by the very first hero, gifted divine blood by the gods themselves, an ability to transcend human limits in strength and magic, passed down through each generation's chosen hero, including the still too weak Arios. Sora and Luna point out that Rein's own accumulation of contracts with ultimate species has made him nearly as powerful, prompting the group to gently suggest he might be the one meant to finish the Demon King for good. Rein admits he'd consider it, but wants time before making such a massive decision. Act 10. The Dwarf's Best Weapon. Deciding to upgrade his gear after everything he's been through, Rein takes Sora and Luna into town for the very first time, initially overwhelmed by the sheer number of humans crowding his streets, until they see Kanade and Tania's easy, natural rapport with the locals, and finally relax, realizing there's nothing to fear here. At the town's premier weapon shop, run by a notoriously gruff and unfriendly dwarf, Rein browses the shelves and picks up a dagger, saying he's always felt most comfortable wielding one over larger weapons. But the moment he unsheaths it, he notices something's clearly missing from its craftsmanship. When a wealthy, bubbly young customer plops down a bag of gold coins and demands the shop's absolute best weapon, the dwarf hands over a beautiful, ornate sword the man admires purely for its appearance before leaving, satisfied. Rein presses the door further, correctly guessing the display weapons, including the one just sold, are merely average pieces he could craft with one hand tied behind his back, lacking whatever intangible quality a real fighter actually needs in combat. The dwarf glares at him for a long, tense moment before bursting in genuine laughter, finally admitting the truth. Everybody who walks through his door expects the absolute best weapon, without ever considering their own skill level or compatibility with what they're buying. So he reserves his true masterwork pieces for buyers who can actually recognize the difference. Introducing himself as Gon Stolov, he unveils a hidden collection of high-grade weapons radiating a unique, unmistakable glow, offering to forge Rein something truly special, if only he still had access to the ultra-precious mithril ore his family's mine has mysteriously stopped producing entirely, rather than gradually running dry like any normal depleted vein would. Suspecting deliberate sabotage rather than bad luck, Rein's party offers to investigate personally, and a delighted Gons accepts, asking what reward Rein wants in return. Rein simply asks for his best weapon, calling it the only fair answer, and Gons happily agrees to the deal. After hiking a long way, they finally reach the mithril mine, which looks abandoned at first glance, though Rein remains suspicious, since it's odd for such a rich supply to stop altogether, rather than dwindle gradually the way a natural depletion would. A large bird suddenly swoops overhead with a loud call, and his suspicions prove correct when two men emerge from the shaft to investigate.
Kanade and Tania knock them out instantly, making direct interrogation impossible, but Sora and Luna peek into the unconscious men's memories with magic instead, discovering 7 adventurers have been illegally mining the mithril for some time, tipped off to the party's arrival by a bird under the control of a rogue beast tamer working alongside them. When the remaining miners realize the 2 lookouts haven't returned, their own mage casts a fire spell down the passage the party is walking through, forcing Sora and Luna to conjure a powerful barrier to shield everyone from the flames. The rest proves a piece of cake for the assembled ultimate species, who bind every one of the criminal adventurers with ease, until Rein punches the rogue beast tamer and demands a surrender, only for the man to refuse and instead snap his fingers, summoning a tame juvenile behemoth, a bee-like monster that's normally impossible to tame given monsters' natural deep-seated hatred towards humans. Having raised this particular one since it was a child, the man holds an unusual bond with it that lets him bypass that instinct of hostility entirely. The behemoth's furious attacks send violent tremors through the already unstable mine, threatening to collapse the shaft entirely on top of everyone inside. While the others evacuate the bound criminals, Rein faces the behemoth alone, studying and dodging its attack patterns as Kanade captures the beast tamer controlling it. Ordered to call it off, the man refuses to the death, so Rein, trusting in his own growing power, overwrites the man's control himself, becoming the beast's new master. Enraged, the man keeps screaming for the behemoth to kill Rein anyway, causing it to break free of any control entirely and turn on its own former master instead. With no other choice, Rein finishes it with a devastating fireball, a regrettable but unavoidable outcome. Outside, the captured adventurers confess their motive was revenge against Gons for past weapons that failed them in combat, having never realized their own mismatched choices were to blame. Guilt-stricken, Gons resolves to pour real passion into every future creation, crafting Rein a dagger, a goblet, and one more mysterious request whispered privately in his ear.
Act 11. Edgar and the Corrupt Knights. Meanwhile, Ario cycles through Beast Tamer applicants for his open party slot, rejecting every single one since none compared to Rein, quietly plotting, alone, with a ring surrounded by dark energy, that his real mission now is eliminating Rein entirely. One peaceful outing later, a golden-haired man approaches Rein, Sora, and Luna, demanding the fairy twins' names and declaring they'll become his. Brushed off, he introduces himself as Edgar, son of the Lord of Horizon, and when refused again, orders his guards to seize them by force. Guards Rein defeats single-handedly before Edgar threatens civilian hostages instead. Trusting a new instinctual feeling, Rein casts multiple fireballs simultaneously, a consecutive incantation, a rare fairy ability letting a single caster unleash the same spell repeatedly in one go, clearly inherited from his contract with Sora and Luna. Edgar retreats, and grateful civilians warn Rein to leave Horizon altogether, given how untouchable Edgar's family influence makes him. Reporting the incident to the Order of Knights proves fruitless. The complaint is dismissed as too trivial, confirming the Knight's corruption runs deep alongside the Lord's family. Followed home by a knight named Stella, the party learns she's the disillusioned vice captain, disgusted by her corrupted colleagues, and eager to restore the Order's honor with Rein and Kanade's help, given their reputation for taking down Ebonfang. Together, they craft a trap, spreading a rumor about incriminating evidence hidden in a warehouse to lure Captain Guylet and his corrupt subordinates into a sealed ambush. Sora and Luna freeze the doors shut the moment the corrupt knights enter, while Rein, using a magical gauntlet gifted by Gans, picks off knight after knight from a high vantage point, all except Guylet himself, who traces the arrows back to Rein and Stella. Insisting on settling the fight herself, Stella overwhelms the captain's brute force assault and finishes him decisively. Act 12. The Captive Princess. Word reaches Edgar of everything that's transpired, sending him into a fury that leads him to brutally beat one of his own kidnapped victims, a girl with fox ears and tails. Arios, revealing himself as a fellow Rein hater, slips into Edgar's window and hands him the cursed ring, claiming it holds the power to kill Rein outright. With the corrupt knights dealt with, Stella marches on the Lord's mansion with a small loyal group including Kanade and Tania, demanding entry as a distraction while Sora, Luna, and Rein sneak in from behind to free the captives. Luna's material search locates the imprisoned civilians below, and something equally powerful hidden above, prompting Rein to investigate alone while the twins handle the rescue and mass teleportation. Inside a dark cell, Rein finds a starved, bruised girl with fox ears and 3 tails, an unmistakable sign of the demigod ultimate species, visibly terrified of him. He breaks her free and heals her wounds, and she introduces herself as Mina, revealing Edgar blackmailed her into captivity by threatening her home village. When Rein tries removing the powerful magical collar on her neck, she flinches, warning him of its dangerous enchantment. Recognizing the spell as a corrupted form of taming magic meant purely to subjugate, he tries overriding its control, enduring a painful electric shock in the process before finally shattering it. Elsewhere, Kanade and Tania effortlessly hold off the guards, who resort to threatening to use the remaining hostages as leverage, a plan folded the instant Sora and Luna arrive, having already relocated every victim to safety, freeing Kanade and Tania to finish the guards off entirely within a minute. Finale, the demon unleashed.
Cornering the fleeing lord, Stella demands her surrender. When he arrogantly refuses, even with the odds stacked against him, Rein binds and silences him with magic before he can attempt anything foolish. Edgar bursts into the room and activates the cursed ring given to him by Arios, summoning a literal Grim Reaper to strike Rein down with an instant death spell said to be unstoppable. Arios, watching gleefully from a rooftop vantage point, is certain his rival is finally permanently dead and slips away into the darkness satisfied. But Rein remains standing, completely unharmed, visibly confused about what just happened and why he's still breathing. Testing a wild theory on the spot, Luna boldly casts a lethal poison gas spell on him too, with the exact same lack of any effect whatsoever, confirming through her admittedly reckless gamble that his contract with the fairy twins grants him immunity to epic level magic entirely, nullifying even a spell explicitly designed to guarantee certain death. Watching his carefully laid plan collapse in real time, Edgar's mounting negative emotions feed directly into the ring, releasing the demon sealed within it, and the moment it appears, Rein's heart stops cold, because it's the very same demon that destroyed his hometown all those years ago, the monster responsible for the deaths of everyone he ever loved as a child. The demon flees the mansion immediately, its true target clearly the entire defenseless city beyond its walls. Rein's party gives chase without hesitation, while Stella stays behind to protect the civilians, and Mina waits anxious in the relative safety of the mansion. The demon proves devastating in combat, injuring both Kanade and Tania badly, even as Rein boosts their strength for an all-out coordinated assault. It remains almost entirely unscathed regardless, and keeps summoning fresh waves of monsters to overwhelm them further. Watching Horizon go up in flames from a distance, the rest of Arios' abandoned party desperately wants to rush in and help, but Arios coldly orders every one of them to stand down and stay out of it. On the ground, Natalie rallies every adventurer left in town to fight back, while Gans personally arms them with his finest, most carefully crafted weapons, helping Rein's exhausted party thin out the endless monster swarm bit by bit. Sora and Luna, working alongside Stella, gather panicked, screaming civilians for mass teleportation to safety, hesitant at first upon learning their unlikely rescuers are fairies, a species most have only heard fearful stories about, until a few individuals who'd already met the twins personally step forward to vouch for them, convincing the rest of the terrified crowd to trust the glowing portal. As a second, even larger monster wave crashes into the city, Sora keeps steadily teleporting survivors to safety, while Luna, Stella, and her knights hold the line against the tide, and Mina watches the unfolding chaos from the mansion the entire time, torn between staying safely put and rushing out to help the people who freed her.
With the party completely stuck against a brick wall trying to land any meaningful damage on the demon's massive frame, Mina finally makes her choice, rushing to Rein's side and offering her insta-teleport ability to help however she can, blinking him instantly from spot to spot around the demon's body, dodging every single one of its attacks with impossible disorienting speed that leaves the creature unable to land a hit. Boosting his own power to its absolute maximum, Rein magically binds the demon in place and with tremendous focused effort overwrites its control over every monster it summoned throughout the fight, turning the entire horde against their own former master in one perfectly coordinated ambush. The combined assault finally decisively brings the demon down for good, ending the threat that had haunted Rein since childhood. Exhausted from the repeated rapid-fire teleportation strain on her small body, Mina passes out cold mid-air moments later, caught safely before she can hit the ground by Tania, who swoops in just in time. With the demon defeated for good, Horizon citizens immediately begin the long process of rebuilding their damaged city, aided enormously by Kanade's superhuman strength clearing debris and hauling materials that would take ordinary laborers days to move. Stella is officially appointed captain of the Horizon Knights in recognition of her role in exposing the corruption within her own ranks, while the surviving corrupt knights are shipped off to the capital to face proper punishment for their crimes. Despite once hiding her true identity out of caution, it turns out Tania's dragonoid nature had already quietly become common knowledge around town without incident or panic, the locals having grown used to her presence. Sora and Luna, fairies or not, are welcomed with open arms and settle into daily town life seamlessly, their earlier fears about human prejudice proving largely unfounded. At Mina's own heartfelt request, Rein forms one final contract with her, officially welcoming the young demigod into the party as its newest permanent member. In recognition of his efforts defending the entire city, the guild formally promotes him all the way to C rank, a massive leap from where he started just weeks earlier as a fired, forgotten beast tamer nobody respected. With his party grown considerably larger than he ever imagined, Rein buys a proper house to serve as their new home base, standard practice among established, successful adventuring groups looking to settle down. The house, as it turns out, is haunted. Rather than fear the resident ghost or try to exorcise her, the party simply befriends her instead and welcomes her as their newest, if admittedly unconventional member, expanding their strange found family even further.
Arios' old party tries extorting free rations from the grateful town using their supposed hero status, only to be run out entirely by furious civilians still bitter over their leader's cowardice during the demon attack, a satisfying reversal of fortune nobody could have predicted. Meanwhile, Rein's own party celebrates their housewarming properly with a full, joyous feast, everyone gathered together under one roof for the first time. Surrounded by the genuine warmth of true friends for the first time since losing his parents and his entire hometown all those years ago, Rein is overcome with emotion and breaks down in tears at the table, comforted instantly by the very companions who stood loyally by him every single step of this journey. Wiping his eyes and smiling through the tears, he finds himself unable to wait for whatever adventure comes next for all of them together. That's the story of a boy the world called useless, who built a family out of a cat spirit, a dragon, 2 fairies, a demigod, and a ghost, and became one of the strongest people alive almost entirely by accident. If you want to see where Rein's story goes from here, go check out the full series for yourself, and let me know in the comments who your favorite member of his party is.